Sengoku Basara, a series created by Capcom about a highly fictional take of the Warring States period of Japan. When I say highly fictional, I mean really highly fictional. It's not the typical historical fiction. Capcom took the characters and lore of the actual history and made sure it's as over the top as possible. It is what gives Sengoku Basara its charm, honestly. Sengoku Basara started in 2005 with the release of its first game on the Sony PlayStation 2. It started off as a small project to boost up Capcom's domestic sales for a more casual audience. Considering Koei's Dynasty and Samurai Warriors games were popular for the Japanese market at the time, Capcom wanted to do their own take of the growing popularity of that subgenre. Sengoku Basara to Heroes, released in 2007, was the true start of the series' popularity. I've gone on record to say that Sengoku Basara to Heroes might be the most popular Musou-like game here in Indonesia, even more so than any Koei titles. In fact, the game ascended the series into more than just a video game series. It became a Japanese pop culture phenomenon. The influence of Sengoku Basara was felt into other forms of media. Did you know that Sengoku Basara to Heroes sparked a boom in tourism for Shiroishi City, the hometown of Katakura Kojuro? According to a study from the Center of Advanced Tourism Studies, Hokkaido University, many tourists in their 20s and 30s began visiting Shiroishi in 2007. After the release of Sengoku Basara to Heroes, the Shiroishi City Hall established the Kojuro Project in 2008 to promote their local tourism. The city even has a district called Kojuro Plaza where you can find any goods related to Katakura Kojuro. This, of course, includes merchandises from Capcom's Sengoku Basara, both official and fan-made. You can find the full research article about how Sengoku Basara revitalized tourism in Shiroishi City with the link in the description of this video. I would recommend you to read it if you have the time. Sengoku Basara went to branch out in other forms of media. Japanese animation studio Production IG produced an anime series based on the existing games. The anime series was released on April of 2009 as its first season. The anime would later have a second season on July of 2010 and a movie called Sengoku Basara: The Last Party on June of 2011. The anime would also be localized in North America on the Funimation channel on November of 2010 called Sengoku Basara Samurai Kings. With the ever-growing popularity of Sengoku Basara, Capcom would once again attempt to localize the game to the West. The start of the 2010s was a time during the prime of the 7th generation console. Capcom had released multiple new generation titles for their long-running IPs such as Devil May Cry 4, Resident Evil 5, Street Fighter 4, and Monster Hunter 3. It was only a matter of time before Sengoku Basara would follow suit. On 29th of July 2010, Capcom released Sengoku Basara 3 for the Sony PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo Wii. This game was localized in the West under the name Sengoku Basara Samurai Heroes. This marks the second game in the series to have an English release. This year not only marks the 15th anniversary of Sengoku Basara 3, but also the 20th anniversary of the Sengoku Basara series itself. So how was this game after 15 years? Let's take a deep dive of the new age Samurai Heroes hack and slash game that is Sengoku Basara 3. Kobayashi Hiroyuki returned as the producer for Sengoku Basara 3. Prior to this game, Kobayashi acted as the producer for Devil May Cry 4 for the Sony PlayStation 3. An interesting fact about Devil May Cry 4, it was actually the first game Capcom developed for the Sony PlayStation 3. Capcom had developed their internal game engine since 2004, primarily to make games for the 7th generation console. The engine is called MT Framework. The first game to utilize this engine was Dead Rising, released in 2006 for the Xbox 360. Kobayashi and his development team fully utilized the MT Framework engine as well for Devil May Cry 4, a move that was considered to be a hard step. In the end, however, Devil May Cry 4 received positive receptions from gamers and critics in which they praised the responsive controls and fluid combat. The game was considered to be the most solid hack and slash game at the time. Because how well the game was received, Kobayashi brought most of its development team to Sengoku Basara 3. The development team needed to utilize the MT framework for a next-generation Sengoku Basara game. However, there is a different scenario this time. Sengoku Basara 3 was not only going to be a Sony PlayStation 3 game, but it was going to be a Nintendo Wii game as well. Considering the Nintendo Wii wasn't as technically powerful as the Sony PlayStation 3 or Microsoft Xbox 360, Capcom needed to scale down the MT framework engine. On late of October 2009, Capcom announced that they were bringing the MT framework for the Nintendo Wii. They created a variation of the engine so that it could run on Nintendo and portable devices. This new variation is called MT Framework Lite. The first game to apply this engine was none other than Sengoku Basara 3 for both the PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo Wii. Going back to the topic of development team, Shigeyoshi Shinya worked as one of the programmers in which he worked prior on Devil May Cry 4. Shigeyoshi would later continue to work in the series up to the point where he became the lead programmer of Sengoku Basara 4. The music and sound department were handled by T's Music once again. Both Ishii Masayoshi and Kondo Rei returned to perform their roles as music composers for the game. Worth noting that both Ishii and Kondo were the composers for Devil May Cry 4. Now, since Capcom would localize Sengoku Basara 3 to the West, the game would have English dub. Considering Capcom had brought in many of the development team from Devil May Cry 4, they would also bring familiar voice actors from that game as well. For a start, the lead character of the series, Date Masamune. Considering he was heavily inspired by Dante from Devil May Cry, who better to voice Masamune than the voice of Dante himself, Ruben Langdon?
You think you can defeat me? I wouldn't be too sure about that. I guess you better try and take your best shot now. Because if you don't, I'm gonna make you sorry. Got that?
Just a bit of a fun fact, when the first Sengoku Basara game was being developed, Kobayashi would refer Masamune as Blue Dante. To Kobayashi, Masamune is more or less the samurai version of Dante, but in blue. The other lead character of the series, Sanada Yukimura, was voiced by the voice of Nero from Devil May Cry 4, Johnny Young Bosch.
Within me is Takeda's spirit, entrusted to me to preserve his fate. In my blood, in my heart, in my soul, it defines who I am. It is my destiny to courageously protect his legacy!
Another fun fact, Johnny Young Bosch is one of the two English voice actors who voiced the same characters in both Sengoku Basara 3 and Samurai Warriors 3. The other voice actor is Vic Mignogna, who voiced Akechi Mitsuhide in both Sengoku Basara 3 and Samurai Warriors 3. Some moveset was even taken straight from Devil May Cry. Examples are Ishida Mitsunari having a similar sword style to Virgil's Yamato, and Saikama Guichi having a similar gun style to Nero's Blue Rose. There is one other aspect of Devil May Cry that the developers applied in Sengoku Basara 3. This is the most important aspect where the game improved from the previous ones. That aspect is none other than the combat. When it comes to combat mechanics in a hack-and-slash game, the Devil May Cry series is often considered as one of the best, if not the best. Its tight controls and heavy emphasis on combos are what made Devil May Cry a gold standard of the genre. Players are given a rich arsenal of moveset for their characters and they are encouraged to perform multiple creative combos. Capcom tried to apply the same style of gameplay for Sengoku Basara 3. In previous games, players can only perform two types of basic attacks: normal attack with the square button and special attack with the triangle button. Every character has a unique set of special attacks. However, players can only pick two interchangeable special attacks during battle. Therefore, the amount of unique and creative combos that you can do are very limited. This rule was completely changed in the third entry. Players can use up to 5 different special attacks without having them being interchangeable during battle. Capcom was able to do this by having different command buttons for special attacks, rather than just being the triangle button. As you can see from the command list, there are 5 different special attack button commands: triangle, motion triangle, R1, L1 triangle, and R2. The R2 special attack is the only one where it's interchangeable. You need to select one out of 3 R2 special attacks on the preparation menu. Now that you have more button commands for special attacks, you have more possibilities of unique combos. This one simple change actually gave the combat for Sengoku Basara 3 a lot more depth. Worth mentioning that every character has a different type of special attacks, thus different playstyle as well. With every character plays differently and an in-depth combat mechanics, Capcom showed how they can create more style and substance in their Musou-like game compared to Koei. In Koei's Musou games, such as Samurai Warriors 3, every character, despite being unique, has a very similar playstyle with each other. Combos you can perform in those games are either a string of normal attacks or a string of normal attacks that ends with a charge attack. In Sengoku Basara 3, you can perform multiple combos with various button commands.
Dragon Slash! Revolver! Strike! Six claws! Strike!
Capcom was able to revitalize the entire series with the new combat system. However, it is not without sacrifices. Capcom had to take away a lot of content that was present in Sengoku Basara 2 Heroes. For start, the game has a roster of only 16 playable characters. Sengoku Basara 2 Heroes has a roster of 30 characters, in which only 11 of them returned as playable characters. There are also 9 characters from Sengoku Basara 2 Heroes that returned, but as unplayable characters. Capcom also took away many modes that were present in the previous game, such as Conquest Mode, Versus Mode, and Tournament Mode. So we are only left with Hero Story and Quick Battles for Sengoku Basara 3. On a different note, this is why I think Capcom should have released Sengoku Basara 2 Heroes first to the West before Sengoku Basara 3. Despite having less refined combat system, the game has a lot more to offer in terms of replay value, especially for Western Musou players who were spoiled with a lot of content from Dynasty and Samurai Warriors games at the time. One feature that did make a comeback is 2-player co-op. For every main entry since Sengoku Basara 2 Heroes, Capcom made sure that multiplayer is present. Battles are also improved in Sengoku Basara 3, in which they are less linear. Sengoku Basara 3 has stages that resemble more of Koei Musou games, albeit not as big. This game also applies the base system like in Koei Musou games, where you need to capture all the enemy bases to proceed through the battle. There is a cool detail that Capcom applied for this game. Enemy soldiers now have battle damage. Whenever you defeat enemy soldiers, their armor comes off. It's a minor detail, but it goes to show you how much Capcom put a lot of heart and soul into the game. Applying the depth of combat from the Devil May Cry games was a good move to bring Sengoku Basara series to a new generation. Sengoku Basara 3 was a good turning point for the series, and it actually got better as it progressed. In Sengoku Basara, the story takes place during Oda Nobunaga's reign of terror. In Sengoku Basara 2, the story takes place during Toyotomi Hideyoshi's conquest of dominance. In Sengoku Basara 3, the story takes place leading up to the Great Battle of Sekigahara. Since it takes place during Sekigahara, the two cover boys of the game are Tokugawa Ieyasu and Ishida Mitsunari. Tokugawa Ieyasu actually made his debut in the first game. He first, however, became playable in the previous entry, Sengoku Basara 2 Heroes. Prior to Sengoku Basara 3, Ieyasu was portrayed as a boy. Considering Capcom took historical context in portraying their characters, Ieyasu's portrayal was mostly due to the fact that he started his career as a warlord at a very young age. According to history, Ieyasu fought his first battle at the age of 15 during the siege of Terabe. Ieyasu got a drastic change in Sengoku Basara 3. He is now a full-grown adult with a great physique. Capcom also changed his entire arsenal of moves. He went from using a spear as a clone of Maeda Toshie to a full-blown fist fighter. Considering Ieyasu was the final unifier of Japan and the person responsible of ending the Warring States period, his character revolves around his will to unite Japan. Ishida Mitsunari, on the other hand, is a completely new character introduced in Sengoku Basara 3. He is a loyal retainer of Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Ieyasu's greatest rival. Capcom portrayed him as a vengeful warrior who vowed to kill Ieyasu by any means necessary. Moveset-wise, Mitsunari was heavily inspired by Virgil from Devil May Cry 3. He is essentially an edgier and angrier Virgil with the hairstyle of Iori Yagami from the King of Fighters series. Oh, and Mitsunari loves to scream Ieyasu's name in the series.
Ieyasu! 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 Ieyasu!
The game introduced 4 more new playable characters: Otani Ishitsugu, Kuroda Kanbei, Saika Maguichi, and Tsuruhime. I will not discuss each and every character portrayal, since that would require separate videos of their own. Let's talk about story structure in this game. Just like Sengoku Basara 2, every character has their own individual story. However, considering this game only has 16 playable characters, Capcom implemented branching path storylines. Every character can have up to 5 different story routes and 5 different endings as well. The story structure does emphasize characters' personality a lot more. It's the one strength that I often praise from Capcom when it comes to Sengoku Basara compared to that of Koei's Dynasty and Samurai Warriors. This was also Capcom's way to compensate the lack of extra modes in the game. Personally, I don't mind having branching path storylines for characters, but I can't say I'm a fan of how Capcom implemented it in Sengoku Basara 3. I just find the story structure to be bloated. You mostly play similar stages with different characters just to give the illusion of rich content. Not to mention, there are not enough rewards that the game has to offer when players beat all the stories. Considering this was Capcom's first attempt on a new generation Sengoku Basara game, there were some give and take situations. Sengoku Basara 3 had a lot more emphasis on showcasing characters' individuality via story and moveset, but with the cost of omitting several contents. On the topic of music, Nishikawa Takanori once again returned as TM Revolution to sing the opening song of Sengoku Basara 3. Considering this game has an English dub, he sang the opening song in both Japanese and English. For this game, Capcom would continue the trend of expressing characters' personality through music. Just like in Sengoku Basara 2, every character in this game has their own theme music as you fight them as enemy bosses. Theme music does not only enhance the presentation of the game, but also brings uniqueness to the characters. Now, it's not just playable characters. Capcom also gave unique NPCs their own theme music. This includes generic regional lords as well. As I have said multiple times, Capcom was able to present characters as individuals a lot better than Koei. From moveset, animation, music, and even stages, everything that you see and hear in Sengoku Basara were designed to revolve around the characters. Sengoku Basara 3, or Sengoku Basara Samurai Heroes, was Capcom's attempt to not only bring the series into a new generation, but to bring in more international audience. The game focuses more on the in-depth combat mechanics as well as showcasing their characters through story. Capcom announced in their press release of September 2010 that Sengoku Basara 3 broke the 500,000 mark in Japan. According to VGCharts.com, Sengoku Basara 3 sold a total of 930,000 copies worldwide, collectively for both Sony PlayStation 3 and Nintendo Wii. This is by far the best-selling Sengoku Basara game in the series. It's safe to say that Capcom successfully brought the series to new heights. Sengoku Basara 3 was a great turning point for the series, as Capcom would later continuously improve on what they have from this game. They were able to do justice for the 5th anniversary of the series. Despite the success, the game did not do as much to bring in new audience from the West. The game sold only 176,000 copies in North America. Because of this, Capcom decided once again to drop all localization for future Sengoku Basara entries. This also includes the next game in the series, an expansion of this entry, Sengoku Basara 3 Utage. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, a lengthy retrospective of Sengoku Basara 3 or Sengoku Basara Samurai Heroes. What are your thoughts on this game? Do you think this is a great turning point for the series? Let me know in the comment section below. With that being said, this is me, Profar. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give me a thumbs down. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Profar Mokoi Hunter X Discord server, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
"あの方の微笑みだけが私の生きる意味」